This time, Indy's taking a trip to the temple. Here's a look at the Hasbro Indiana Jones Adventure Series. Build an Artifact Temple of Doom, Indiana Jones. This 6-inch scale Adventure Series figure is detailed to look like the Indiana Jones Temple of Doom character from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Featuring premium detailing and multiple points of articulation, figure includes build an artifact piece so fans can create a portion of the Temple of Doom. While Indiana Jones is on the search for Sankara stones, let's grab the tape measure and see how tall the figure stands. With his fedora, because it is non-removable, the figure you're getting is 6 inches in height, or the figure is going to be 15 centimeters tall. This figure from the sequel, or should I rather say prequel, is in fact the second Indiana Jones figure that we've gotten from the Build-A-Series wave from Hasbro. Of course, we're building something a little bit different this time around. Sliding over the Indiana Jones we're about to have a look at and pair him up with the original Indiana Jones from Raiders of the Lost Ark. I will say right away, I think the head sculpt is vastly improved on the newer one, and if you're asking yourselves right now as you're currently watching this, can you in fact swap out the head sculpts? No, you can't. We're going to talk more about that in a moment. I suppose the first thing we'll look at is actually the figure's accessories. The smallest and most likely to be lost, I'm sure, is the Smith & Wesson M1917 revolver that Indiana Jones always packs and holsters on the side of his leg. It is, in fact, if I could just reach off to the side here and grab the one that we got here from the Raiders of the Lost Ark, it looks to be the exact same revolver, except for the handle. The handle you can see from the Temple of Doom release does actually get an afforded brown, whereas the original one was only molded just in the black plastic alone. It seems, though, to be the exact same revolver, and holsters, unfortunately, in the same difficult fashion. We're going to go ahead, first of all, and just open up the holster. Now, the holster involves, the first time you're doing this, probably will be the last time you'll be able to close this. You're going to open up the holster on the side, then holster the revolver inside of that. And, of course, you're going to be wanting to close, of course, the top of the revolver down. Here's the tricky part, though, is taking then the softer plastic that they would have provided here, and this tiny little nub, the tiniest of nubs, you have to actually tuck inside the pocket flap. Good luck trying to do this. Now, I actually have had better luck. I guess I really played this up a lot better than I really should have. The actual revolver holsters better on this one than it did on the original Indiana Jones. So I really shouldn't have even been complaining at all that the revolver didn't store properly. And I don't know if they fixed that. Here's the real problem that I have. Involves, of course, the whip. We're going to just put his arms down here for 1 second. Let's look through his variety of whips. He has one rolled up whip that actually will be the one that stores on the side of his belt. Good luck doing that. This time I'm actually serious. Then he also has a longer version of the whip, which really isn't that much different than the whip that we got before. Although this one looked like it was just, I think it's in fact the exact same length of whip. Let's just extend the both out and you can see, yeah, it looks to be the exact same whip. Just one was curved a little bit different than the other. This is, I think, the one that comes included with the Indiana Jones from Temple of Doom. It's slightly more faded brown plastic. There's a little bit more of a darker brown that actually came packed along with the Raiders of the Lost Indy. This one stores fine. This is just a case you're going to clip this into his hand, providing, of course, the whip doesn't just tangle around your own hand while trying to do it. And he holds it, well, okay. It holds better, first of all, if you take the end of the knot and you use that as the part that actually clips inside his hand. If you have, though, the whip a little bit further down, well, the whip then sits a little loosey-goosey. I don't like loosey-goosey whips, so I'm just going to bring that up a little bit higher. And it holds, actually, by using the little knot on the end of it, a lot easier on Indy. Try saying that, though, in fact, for this whip, because this whip, in fact, has to involve you taking this little strip of plastic that's still soft like the holster on the other side. Now, where I may have played up how difficult it was to holster the gun, I'm not playing up at all how difficult it is to store the whip. You have to take the whip and you have to put it around the little strap of plastic. Okay, yeah, okay, we got that part. And then you're going to take still that same soft plastic with an equally soft tab on the end of it, and you have to plug it into this hole right here. I'm doing my best not to cover it with my thumb. Plugging this in never works. Never, ever works. Probably could soften the plastic up just a little bit with hot water, but I mean, really, the plastic is soft enough already. We don't need this plastic to be any softer than it is right now, but it is the hardest thing to plug in place. part of me is almost even tempted just to glue it and call it a day. The only problem with that, though, is if I decide I want to have Indiana Jones displayed with his whipping whip, then this would probably seem then null and void. Like, what's the point of him actually carrying around like an extra backup whip? That seems a little ridiculous. So yeah, the whip, unfortunately, while the gun holster's fine, the whip I can't say the same for. It just, I mean, even really without the whip, the plastic is just way too soft. I can barely, well, the first time I did this, it worked, and then every single time I've done since, it never plugs properly in place. It always ping, shoots right back out of his belt. The figure also comes included with, getting him quickly to stand, the figure also comes with a very long sword. A machete, you could say, in fact. It's a little more of a warped, unfortunate plastic that they've used. The gray, unfortunately, taking it out of its tray. And it wasn't even inside of a tray. You saw at the beginning of this review, it was inside of like a paper baggie. And I don't know if just the time that it's actually sat slumbering inside the bag, whether it just had warped the plastic on the end of it. Probably going to have to heat that up just a little bit. Of course, you can take the knife and fit it into his hand. If Indy is ever involved in any sort of knife fight, you know he's just going to revert to the revolver instead. But if you want to display the figure with that, you can also do that as well. This whole time, of course, this guy's behind the camera has been yammering on. I'm sure you guys have been wondering what exactly this thing is on the side of his leg. Well, that's actually part of the artifact. The figure comes included with that. If you remember Temple of Doom, in the temple itself, there was these giant skulls, and they sort of had little snakes on the top of it. Well, this is essentially the starting of that. We get basically just the bottom jaw. Just for a second here, I wanted to bring in the packaging. I'm glad, first of all, that Hasbro has gone the route of actually packing everything inside of the, like, recyclable things. They're being environmentally responsible. But also here, it shows you how everything has to be installed. I'm sure putting things together will be a lot easier than putting together the Ark, which, of course, was the previous build and artifact thing that we had to have a look at. But Indiana Jones comes basically with the bottom jaw, which is this piece right here. Then you will get the top part of the skull, you'll get the back of the skull, you get a serpent or cobra that's going to perch on top of it. And it looks like it's going to have a couple of stone eyes. So, yeah, it's not much really that we have to look at right now, but it's a start. I mean, just to kind of look how big that is compared to the rest of Indiana Jones, I'm guessing it's probably going to be about, what, yay high? So it's going to be pretty big. What I'm going to do with it, I don't know. Even in the online descriptions of this, it says fans and collectors can start to build a portion of the Temple of Doom. I think this is to the extent of how far we're going to be getting. It's just literally just a skull. And I guess if you really want to buy a second wave of these, you'd essentially have like a skull on both sides. That's as far as we're going to be really going with that. Okay, so let's go ahead and remove the machete from Indiana's hand. And of course, we'll get a closer look at the figure's head. Right away, I'll bring back in the original Indiana Jones, which I thought was a way too dirty of a face sculpt. I think personally that this is a much better looking head that we get here. He's losing a little bit of a chin, I feel. Like his chin doesn't seem as strong, but it may have something to do with the fact that the other Indiana Jones had a little bit more stubble on his face. Now, he's quite dirty in this movie, so my first immediate thought was, hey, I really like the look of this one, where he's got a little bit more of a visible mouth. This one, actually, the original one didn't quite have that. What if I was to take this one, and I was going to take this one, and I would throw Mama from the train? Crisscross, applesauce. Well, it doesn't work that way. As good as this head sculpt may be, and if you had any long-time plans of swapping this out with the original Indiana Jones, it's just not going to work. The reason why it's not going to work, I'm just going to pop the head off right now from the ball joint. This little pouch that he has on the side of his body just is always getting in the way of things. But we're just going to pop the head off the ball joint. There's the one. I'm going to come back to that in a second. Decapitated Indiana Jones. Yeah, because you would think to yourself, I would have thought myself at least, if they're going to be using the Indiana Jones line, I'm sure that the bodies would be consistent and all the joints still the same. No, not the case. We're going to go ahead and pop off Indiana Jones from his neck. There we go. And I want to compare with you, if I can. Come all in, everybody. No, huddle in. It's okay. I wanted to show you. This is the size of the ball joint that came packed for the Raiders of the Lost Indiana Jones. This is the ball joint that they used then for Temple of Doom. Why would they have deliberately, and I can only imagine they deliberately did do this, why would they have then made the figures with quite completely different sized ball joints? Because I'm sure anybody would have thought to themselves, hey, that would be nice. If I had an Indiana Jones, I could just swap around some of the heads. You can't do that. Let's say, for example, you wanted to take, well, the one I wanted to use really was the Indiana Jones, which is this one right here, the Temple of Doom. Well, the Temple of Doom, as good as it may look on this Indiana Jones for the original body, it's just not going to sit. It's way too big of a socket joint on the inside. It's never going to be able to fit onto the ball joint. And in fact, putting it onto the neck, his neck looks then smaller because, of course, it can't sit far enough in there. I suppose I probably could have just added some filler on the inside here, and this sort of just, I flub it. It could just, I mean, nobody would ever be any wiser, but I would know, and then that would bother me. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why they wouldn't have just not used the exact same ball joint, because that, to me, at least makes the most sense. Oh, and obviously, if you guys wanted to see what he looks like with the Temple of Doom. Like, I like, personally, the dirtier Indiana Jones head sculpt. But again, like the ball joint this time around is never going to fit, because the hole is way too small. Sigh. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to stick with what we have for right now. I suppose you probably, if you wanted to go the whole work of sanding down the one ball joint, why would you want to do that? Making then the other larger ball joint, the other ball joint a little bit larger, why would you want to even do that? At the end of the day, I really think like Hasbro should have just made the ball joints exactly the same size. You were wondering it, I was wondering it, and of course the moment I got these figures in hand, the first thing I did was swap the heads out to see if it would work, and the answer is a resounding no. Either way, though, let's move this other Indiana Jones out of the way. Going back to the one we get from Temple of Doom, he does have one thing on the side, his little sash bag. This thing's always getting in the way. Every single time I try to move the figure, I keep banging the side of the bag. Technically, of course, you can easily just remove it. It's just a case of sliding over top of his torso. It does make Indiana Jones look a little like he's missing something. Obviously, he's missing his bag. But if you want to take it off, you can certainly do that also as well. Getting a little closer look at the figure, I know we've spent just only a little bit of time talking about the head sculpt. This one actually is a really good likeness of Indiana Jones. There's something still off, I feel, about the chin area, but I like that this one seemed to be a little bit more of a cleaner portrait. His fedora is also hanging down a little bit more than the original Indiana Jones we looked at before. I think really of the two, this is the better of the batch. Of course, he doesn't have this jacket this time around. In fact, he's got his shirt wide open here, and he's got, I can only imagine to be sweat stains, mud stains, and everything else that's settled onto the fabric as this guy's going around gallivanting in the temples. Of course, he does also have, this time around, wrapped up bandages on the one hand here. The other hand is fine, and this one actually doesn't have the sleeve. Obviously, this side does have still the sleeve. So there's some really interesting stuff that they've sculpted onto this figure. There's some nice tears that they put on the back of the fabric there. And of course, down below, while the pants are pretty much the same as what we got with the original Raiders, this one does have now the ripped open knee. And of course, his boots don't seem to be. Let's just bring back the figure. It doesn't look like the boots are any bit different other than they've just taken the time to paint the laces. So again, like it probably is the case that they would have used maybe this one leg is still the same, probably even used the top of the torso, or like this part of his torso here, and they would have just simply re-sculpted, because this is ripped open. This isn't just somebody has just gone in with a paintbrush and, hey, look at me, I'm painting in ripped pants. No, actually, this one does actually have sculpted ripped pants. So they probably would have used this part of his body as still the same, probably the lower half, and of course the shoes would have carried over the exact same as well. For the articulation on this guy, it's going to be exactly the same as the original Indiana, so of course his head's going to be on that oddly sized then ball joint. Like, why would they? Anyways, the head rotates all the way around. It looks down, it looks up. In addition to that, Indiana Jones also has a secondary ball joint. Can you believe that? At the base of his neck. That allows the head to move up and down, additionally back and forth also as well. The upper torso of the figure is on a ball joint. Now, the way the ball joint works is like the shirt essentially is a separate piece. For all intents and purposes, if you wanted to finish the look, you could easily just rip this right off. But why would you? We already have a hypnotized Indiana Jones that's going to be also part of this wave. So if you're waiting for a shirtless Indiana, you can wait. Wait it out. But yeah, it just looks like this shirt is going to be a separate piece. Underneath, though, the shirt is a ball joint, and there's also a secondary ball joint at the base of his tummy. Arms come out. Now, I've noticed on my figure, the arms are really tight. Not so much tight on this one side, but super tight here on the other side. I don't know why, but I would rather, again, like loose, tight joints than loose joints. Arms rotate all the way around. That's, of course, the same on both the sides. Figure has a single hinge on the elbow, which also allows the forearm to rotate, and the hands also independently rotate all the way around. The legs do split out, not hindered at all by a holster that does actually close this time, and a little strap that's supposed to hold the whip, and we know, we've already seen it, it doesn't hold it at all. The legs go forward, though. Legs go back. There's a swivel 3/4 the way up the thigh. Figure has a single hinge in the knee that allows at least the rotation of the lower leg, and the figure also has a ball joint at the base of the feet, or where the feet at least attach by ankle, that also allows the feet to rock back and forth. I feel, though, let's go ahead and just get his bag back on there. I just feel like it finishes the look to have the little sash bag on the side of Indiana Jones's body. All in all, like, again, it's a really good look in Indiana Jones. The problem that I may have had with the original head sculpt, just get this guy to stand now. The problem I may have had with the original Indiana Jones, not necessarily this one, but this one right here, was the fact that the face was way too dirty. So I had the thought, as I'm sure many of you also had that same similar thought, hey, when Temple of Doom Indiana Jones comes around, that's a really dirty Indiana Jones in that movie. What if I just throw Mama from the train, crisscross, we just swap the heads. This is a relevant analogy if you guys have never seen Throw Mama from the Train, but Danny DeVito and Billy Crystal have to swap, killing their opposite love interest, the mother, not love interest, but the mother for Danny DeVito, and of course the ex-wife for Billy Crystal, crisscross. They cross. Anyways, the whole point of that was, my idea was, I could simply just swap the heads. Doesn't work that way, my friends. Unfortunately, Hasbro, for one reason or another, decided just to change the sizing of the ball joints. It made little to no sense, considering that they're using a lot of the same body elements from one figure to the other. Had it only been the case that this Indiana Jones used the exact same ball joint as the earlier looked at Raiders of the Lost Indy, I might have even considered the idea of picking up a second one of these and swapping out the head completely on the original Raiders one. The head sculpt on that one I thought was way too dirty, but again, my bigger plan was, okay, I know that Indiana Jones is dirtier. He's going through the mud literally and figuratively in Temple of Doom. Why not then take the dirtier face for Raiders Indiana Jones head sculpt and swap it then out with this one? No, apparently Hasbro had other ideas. And I would be really curious to know exactly what those ideas were. Why would you then take a figure that's of what we could imagine to be the exact same line? I mean, this one was a build-in artifact wave. This one happens to be a build-in artifact wave. They're exact same sized figures, the same build, the same articulation. Who had then the great idea, let's change the size of the ball joint? That makes no sense to me. Unless they thought, hey, any collector who's picking this up, what if they want to swap out the heads and Hasbro just wanted to stop them in their tracks? Like, really, seriously, what was the logic behind that? If you can overlook that one little missight, unfortunately, on Hasbro's part, this is, I still feel, to be a better looking Indiana Jones. He is, though, missing his leather jacket, but I think he gets, though, a better head sculpt, and he comes included with many of the same accessories that really the other Raiders also came included with as well. Complete with also a belt holster for the gun, at least, that actually closes this time. I was really surprised to see that. Mind you, the whip strap, that still never will close. I don't even know what I can really do. My only other idea that I had was maybe taking a little bit of like a glue or like a nail polish, just putting it on the very end nub, just enough to harden the plastic enough that when its entry goes into the hole, then it would be able to store and stay in place. Because unfortunately, by using softer plastic for the entire thing, every single time you try to take the nub and put it into the hole, it's never going to properly go in place. Anyways, though, what do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Have you had, by the way, the chance to pick up the new Adventure Series Indiana Jones? And how far along are you at building the artifact? Unfortunately, one of the other things as well about this wave is that unlike Raiders wave, we are also including the Dial of Destiny Indiana Jones in there as well, and also the other character that I'm sure everybody is really looking forward to me reviewing. But why would they have included those? I really think that they should have just done those as a separate Dial of Destiny wave, but hey, what do I know? If you guys certainly enjoyed this video, want to hit with a like. If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing, and certainly on board to see us build the piece of the Temple of Doom. And that's, I'm sure, as far as we're going to get when it comes to building the Temple of Doom. Hasbro has no plans to build us a big, giant temple. Maybe the rack that Indiana Jones was strapped on, I think that may have made an interesting artifact. Although it's not really an artifact, it's literally just a stretcher that he's strapped on top of. Either way, though, definitely more videos coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.